you were never afraid. You were always transparent. You said what was on your mind.
Too
you
much.
didn't back away, but you didn't back away. But it's
Right.
allowed you to
right.
take those chances in the business world as well. And there's a reason why I am athlete and all the things that you're touching right now have exploded because you're not afraid.
That's right.
And I want to go
Oh,
down
man.
that line.
Yeah.
Let's go down the line of the entrepreneurial spirit.
Wow. I just got goosebumps thinking about that, and I was just like, man, fear. Actually flying out here to the Super Bowl because we're in it right now. Opening up our Dallas location, Tampa. We have a show, I Am Athlete. We're launching another show in 2 weeks called I Am Athlete Tonight, where it's a 5-day-a-week show. And we got some other things happening. It's just so much going on. And I was like, man, if you can be, you have to really meet fear. Like, you really have to deal with and learn how to deal with fear. It happens, but the ones that can't deal with it, they should never, ever become an entrepreneur or even try. Like, entrepreneur and fear goes together.
All right, and welcome to the One Shot Podcast. We are here at the Super Bowl, partnered with Sleep Number. And, man, today
I'm excited for this.
we've been
one,
talking
Ty.
about this for 2 years, about getting this guy on.
True.
You-
It's been your fault.
Yeah,
it has
it
It's
has.
been your fault the
It
whole
has
time.
been.
We're going to blame you.
Y'all play together, and you can't get them all.
Been friends.
Yeah, so I've been
Work
telling-
together, do
I've been-
business together.
I've been telling you guys that that's my best friend on the planet.
Yeah.
But I think there'll be a different story coming from him.
He doesn't even have your number saved. I bet.
It's like, hey, this is Brandon every time I call. But y'all know him from the I Am Athlete podcast. Easily, probably the fastest growing media content surrounding athletes and just like culture, right? He created this podcast, brought on some guys, and it has absolutely exploded because of the depth that y'all go, the guests that you get on, and man, just the conversations, the real, raw, transparent conversations. So we have, we got two future, in my opinion, two future Hall of Famers
wow.
sitting in between, sandwiched in between.
Maybe
Wow.
three, maybe three Hall of Famers.
at this table. I'm the Lone Ranger here.
Dude,
Abilene
just
Christian
walk
Hall
away.
of Fame doesn't count. Right? But we got Brandon Marshall sitting with us, and man, thank you for taking the time. I know this week is crazy busy, but man, I appreciate you adjusting and sitting down with us.
Listen, we're here with Sleep Number. If you get your sleep, man, you can manage this week.
Yes,
Yes.
that's right. And we know what
We
Super
love
Bowl
you,
week
Sleep
is
Number.
like. Yeah.
No, this is awesome, man. I appreciate you guys inviting me. This whole setup I think you guys have the best setup out of everybody here at Radio Row. This is pretty cool.
It's legit, man. They
Sleep
did a good
Yeah,
job.
right.
We're gonna finish the interview. There's a bed 2 bays down. We're just
Right.
gonna lay down and spoon and finish the rest of the episode.
Let's do it.
I call middle.
Let's do it.
But Brandon, man, hey, I had the pleasure of playing with you in Chicago, and then obviously watched your career, and you did some amazing things on the field. I mean, things that I have never seen anybody else do in person. And so, I mean, honored to have
He's just
played
saying
with you.
this.
No, it's true
No,
story.
he's not. I watched it too, bro.
True
Please.
story. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a true story. And, I mean, I saw you do stuff when you and Peanut used to go against
Oh,
each other,
man, legendary.
I mean, in Peanut, in terms of a corner, Peanut Tillman, Charles Tillman, the Peanut Punch, I mean, is as tall a corner as you probably get in the league. There's a couple guys that may be a little bit longer, but, man, the stuff that y'all used to do, man, I'm like, how do these guys do this, man?
Bro,
So it was so fun to watch.
It was legendary. Peanut and Champ Bailey. He was one of those guys. You had Vontae Davis. He was young. I was entering into being a vet. This was my 4th year. I had some legendary battles. Even Darrell Revis towards the end of our careers, and it was the same. It was the same type of approach and the same practices. I mean, Darrell Revis and I shut down practice. But Peanut, the reason why I love going against Peanut is because, I wanted to get the best of him every day. He wanted to get the best of me every day. And there was a little bit of, like, we didn't like each other, right?
Yep.
Like, it wasn't until, like, halfway through the year when I first got there, it was like, oh, you're actually a cool dude.
Right.
Right? But we used to get after it. and I felt like it made the practices a little bit more competitive and brought a little bit more juice. But it was awesome.
So what are those practices? I know you were competitive in those practices. What do you think that did to some of the younger guys that were coming up, the rookies that were coming up, watching the two best players on the team compete at that level?
It set the example. Like it trips me out now, and I go to high school football games, my nephew's games, and they'll walk off the field or they're walking in between lines. Like how we grew up, our generation, that wasn't allowed,
Right.
not by a coach or a veteran player. That's not allowed. So I think setting the tempo and making sure everyone knows this is how it goes. George O'Leary was my college coach, right? So I had some old school, coaching, and I still was in that way where not only did I catch the ball, I could 5-yard hitch route, but I also finished 20 yards upfield, and then I also jogged all the way back, right? Like there's just a level, there's a standard, and I feel like it's missing a little bit in today's game, but that's what it did for the younger guys. It set the standards how you're supposed to do. Rod Woodson, when I first got in the league, my OG, Rod Woodson was like, young man, like you'll never beat me in gassers. Rod Woodson was in his 12th year. I was in my first year. And he made it his business to never, ever let me win in the gasser. I was faster than Rod. I was stronger than Rod. I was younger than Rod. And he beat me every single offseason, every rep, every gasser.
Man, I right now, this game, right, everything is, and as it should be, right? We've advanced scientifically and understanding the human body, how recovery works. And there's got to be that balance between, okay, hey, look, we've got to dig deeper and we've got to push ourselves to a limit that we couldn't go before.
That's right.
You can't just recover all the time, right?
That's right.
You've got to break down a little bit to become stronger. And Darren talks about it all the time, right? Hearing about the 90s Cowboys practices.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, he talks about, no joke, and everybody says it, but I believe it. In Dallas, they're like, practices were way harder than games were.
Jimmy?
Yeah.
Yes, under Jimmy, yeah, absolutely. And it
goodness.
was just, and you know what, I want to go back to, because we can talk about the history of how hard those practices were, but it speaks to the individual as well, because the same type of mentality that certain individuals, I'm not going to say everybody at practice had this mindset, right, of I'm going to compete to the highest level.
Right.
But there were certain individuals. I dealt with Michael Irvin and Emmitt Smith and the Troy Aikmans and Daryl Johnson. And I say these names, and this is why I say these specific names, is because these are the same guys that when they how they practice in practice, how they played in the games, it's translated to the entrepreneurial side of their life.
Wow.
And that speaks directly to you too, because you were never afraid. You were always transparent. You said what was on your mind. You didn't back away, but you didn't back away. But it's allowed you to take those chances in the business world as well. And there's a reason why IAMATHLETE and all the things that you're touching right now have exploded, because you're not afraid.
That's right.
And I want to go down that line.
Yeah.
Let's go down the line of the entrepreneurial spirit.
Wow. I just got goosebumps thinking about that, and I was just like, man, fear, actually flying out here to the Super Bowl, because we're in it right now, opening up our Dallas location, Tampa. We have a show, IAMATHLETE. We're launching another show in 2 weeks called IAMATHLETE Tonight, where it's a 5-day-a-week show. And we got some other things happening. There's just so much going on. And I was like, man, if you can be, you have to really meet fear. Like, you really have to deal with and learn how to deal with fear. It happens, but the ones that can't deal with it, they should never, ever become an entrepreneur or even try. Like, entrepreneur and fear goes together.
Yes.
Right? But it's how you deal with it, man. Like, there's sometimes I wake up every day like, oh my goodness, like I'm fearful. Like, how am I going to get to the next week? How am I going to get through this challenge, right? I've never even been through something like this. I've played football my entire life. And then you just keep getting up. You keep getting up, keep getting up. You got to find a solution. You got to find a way. If you're not willing to go through that, then you should never, ever even think about becoming an entrepreneur, right? Because this phase right here, eventually you break through because you have the reps, right? Like, I grew up playing ball. I started playing ball when I was 6 years old. So there's so many reps I got. I know how it feels to be hit. I know how it feels to get hit the ground and get back up. Or I know how it feels to be injured and the rehab process. I know that. I have so many reps there. In business, these are fresh reps.
Yeah.
So this feels a little, you know how
Yeah.
it is.
It's like,
It's like a little harder.
It's like your rookie year, right? Like all you're
Oh,
worried about
man.
is like, I just got to learn how to line up. Like,
Right.
where do I go to line up in this scheme? Or, hey, how do I run? Where do I stop my route? Right.
Yeah.
And then you're like, and you're looking at these guys who've been in the league 6, 7, 8 years, and you're like, man, I'll never get to that understanding this game. And then second year, you're like, all right, I'm comfortable with the
Right.
offense now, and I understand it. And then third year, you're like, all right, now I see the whole defense. I understand what you're doing. I can
moving quicker.
predict it. It just happens. But you're in that. I wouldn't say rookie because man, I've worked alongside you,
Right.
And you have a vision and you understand it.
Yep.
But that fear thing is
Yeah.
big, man.
Big.
And look, for entrepreneurs, and when you say, hey, look, if you can't do it, don't be an entrepreneur. It's okay if you can't handle
Right.
it, man.
It's not for everybody.
Because listen, it takes a team to do it. It
Mhm.
takes a team of people. I don't necessarily have to be the entrepreneur and take the risks,
Yep, yep,
right?
yep.
But I can go kill it doing another role, playing another role.
We have to understand our roles, and that's the thing. That right now, what's happening in sports, everyone's a brand, you know, and it's brand first, team second, and in just the world and business, everyone's an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But you got to really define what entrepreneur is, and you have to really understand that because it's tough.
Yeah. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur right now. Like that's
Right.
the sexy thing,
That's
right?
bro.
That's
oh my
the sexy
goodness,
thing
Gary
to
V.
do.
Didn't you guys
Yeah.
have Gary V on your
Yes.
show?
Yes.
How was that?
Yeah. It was intense.
He hasn't been on your show? He hasn't
No,
been? No.
no.
Wow, you got to get Gary Vee on your show, man.
Oh,
I'm
man.
surprised he hadn't been on
That's
your
one
show.
thing we're beating IAMATHLETE on.
Yeah.
But you said something a second ago. You talked about fear. And I think that's refreshing for somebody like me to hear because I see IAMATHLETE and how it exploded. I
Right.
see House of Athlete and how it's taken off. I see your career and just how awesome it was. It's good to know, no offense, but it's good to know that you do go through these things.
Oh my goodness.
And it's good to know that you do struggle the same way that everybody does. Because
Yep.
people listening to this podcast are not athletes
Yeah.
for the most part.
Not everybody.
Not
They may
everybody.
think
Right.
they are.
Right? But and it's hard to relate. It's hard to see somebody with so much success and think, oh, he struggles just like me?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, you know, there's another show I'm developing. It's just called This is House of Athlete. And it's basically behind the scenes of how we're building this. So I've been filming for about 2 years now. So we have a lot of content, and we're just going to find a home for it. So that's why I haven't released it. But I feel like more people need to see that
Yes.
process.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to wait until we're sitting on the mountaintop in 5 years. And it's like, oh, look at us. Look at our company's worth, and look at all the amazing people that we've blessed. I don't want to do that. I want you to see it now. I want you to see the good, the bad, the ugly right now, so you understand that it is tough, man. I call it like a entrepreneur roller coaster. You know, like today Sirius XM can come say, hey, we got this 7-figure deal, and we really want to work with you, right? And then the next day you got 5 employees like, I hate it here. I'm leaving. It's like, what? I'm like, oh, no, I need you right now. Don't leave.
Yes.
Right? So it's like this roller coaster. And I mean, you could be at the mountaintop one day, and the next day you could be in the valley. And how do you deal with those ebbs and flows?
Yeah.
Right? So that's been the most interesting thing for me, and probably the toughest transition.
Yeah.
Toughest part of the transition for me is like managing people and working
Yeah.
with people in this realm of life.
All right, I want to take a quick minute to talk about our partner, Choctaw Casino and Resort. We are really, really humbled and grateful to be a partner for them. If you've listened to this show for any amount of time, you've heard how great the resort is there, how great the casino is, the new expansion. They've doubled in size, 3,000 new slots. They've got unbelievable sports bar. They've got unbelievable restaurants, unbelievable movie theaters, arcades for kids. It is endless, the things that they've not only improved but added. But it's just the experience that they provide is second to none. Choctaw Nation has done an incredible job with the community, with philanthropy, with support. They have just done incredible things. So we are extremely humbled and grateful to partner with Choctaw Casino and Resort. Make sure, I know you know it, but it's just a short drive up 75. Go check them out. And now back to the episode.
Yeah, so I think that's a perfect segue because we want to talk a little bit about transition because unlike you, and I know that you feel like hey, if I'm going to look at myself, man, I struggle with the transition too.
Right.
You know, if people will look at me and be like, man, you got into business and you're doing well and you're doing great. It was easy for you. Nah, man, it's really behind the scenes. It's really hard. That
Right.
transition for
man.
athletes, not dissimilar to military, not dissimilar to executives that have this identity wrapped up in what they've done for so long and what they've known. So I want to go into that because I want to talk about transition. I want to talk about identity, but what I feel like gets you through those tough times, those ebbs and flows, those roller coasters, is having a sense of purpose. And you established a very clear purpose 2011 and 12.
That's right.
Right. So you went through something. So talk through really in my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, but there's a foundational like mindset of service for
Yes.
you. Like I want to be able to make people's lives better or help people make their own lives better.
Right.
So walk us through 2010 and kind of really how that laid the foundation for the purpose for your transition out of football.
Right. All right. Yeah. I think, man. So the goal is to understand your purpose and find your purpose, right, and to live a purpose-filled life. And so it takes time. It's tough, but you gotta fight your butt off to figure out what that is. Because once you do that, man, life is so much smoother and easier. It's like rewarding. I wouldn't say smoother and easier. It's just rewarding. You know, understanding that, you know, you're making the world better. You're making the community around you better. So go back to 2010, 2011, my life was a living hell, right? And part of the reason why is because my identity was wrapped up in the game. I didn't know how to control my emotions because it wasn't about the business. It was more personal for me. It's like, man, you're taking food off my table, whether it's a player on my team, a player on another team, a general manager, a coach, a owner, didn't matter, right? And I didn't understand how to control my emotions. I didn't understand how to communicate. I didn't know how to operate within a team, function within a team, right? And even off the field, it's the same thing. My interpersonal relationships, a living hell, right? So 2011, I'm playing for the Miami Dolphins, just traded from the Denver Broncos, and I just couldn't control my tone. I would go in there, I'm like, man, I'm mature enough. I'm tired of arguing and bickering with teammates or coaches, you know, media talking about me. I'm just going to just come in, do my job, and not say anything. And it was a game, and I knew the coach was going to say something terrible, and the guy said something. I just went off.
Were you in the locker room at this time?
No, we were in a meeting room.
Oh, in the meeting room.
This is the Monday.
The Monday.
We played
Okay.
Sunday.
All right.
This is Monday. Now we're reviewing film. Okay, we're going through Sunday. Okay, and so I came in. I said, I'm not going to say anything. I know it's going to be something, but I'm not going to say anything because I don't want it to go left. Right? I end up saying something, and I just remember going in the bathroom like, oh my goodness, like I can't control myself. Right? And I went to Ricky Williams and I said, Ricky, do you think I'm bipolar? And Ricky said, no, Brandon. This is Ricky's voice. He said, no, Brandon, I don't think you're bipolar. I just think you say all the things that we want to say but shouldn't say. and the reason why that was important because I just got to Miami. Remember, Run, Ricky, Run just came out the year before that. I think that was 2010. So Run, Ricky, Run just came out. That's a 30 for 30 on Ricky Williams and on ESPN. Now, in that film, Ricky Williams, it highlights it. It shows. I mean, they're showing, you know, this journey that he was on. This is Ricky Williams, just signed a huge deal, millions of dollars. He left that on the table, went to Australia, living in a tent. But there was a moment, right, where I'm dressed. I went to his premiere. I'm dressed in a nice little suit. My wife is with me, right, and I'm sitting there in this beautiful theater. And then halfway through the doc, you know, Ricky left like Australia, went to McLean Hospital, and he's sitting down with this guy. This guy is Dr. Gunderson. I'm like, dang, I know that guy, right? And so now we're looking at his journey at McLean Hospital, and now he's introducing mental health, this conversation of mental health. And I'm like, I know that guy. And I left, and I just kept thinking, I know that guy. Well, that was the guy the NFL sent me to 2 years before. I just flew out to Waltham, Massachusetts for an hour. I flew into town, and I sat down with him, and we just had a conversation, and that was it. And I left. So a couple years later, I'm looking at, was that the guy that helped Ricky Williams? Maybe that's the guy that can help me, you know? So that offseason, I ended up flying out to, Waltham, Massachusetts, McLean Hospital, #2 psychiatric hospital in the entire world. And I would go out there once a month, right? And then halfway through, he's like, Brent, I think you need a more intense program. So I think you need to stay out here. And I stayed out there for 3 months, and it was like college campus for me, 9 to 5. I was on campus. I was in self-assessment. I was in dialectical behavior therapy. I was in mentalization therapy. I was in cognitive behavior therapy. I did a clinical evaluation the first day. I did a neurological evaluation the first day. Like I mean, it was one of the most phenomenal experiences I've ever had. Within 3 months, my life totally transformed. Before that, I gave my life to Christ, but things were still happening, right? And then it wasn't until I actually sat down and did the work, and then it was like, oh, and then God just started really showing up in a radical way for me. So that's when, things changed for me, and now I'm sitting here living a purpose-filled life. Like, it's like everything I do, even on the media side, House of Athletes side, is only to push to this one thing. Like, my goal is to give away $400 million to the mental health community. And that was because, like, big corporations and companies, I'm like, man, do you see what's happening in the mental health space? Like, people need help. Yeah. And I was like, we need help over here. And nobody would fund it. I was like, well, all right, what the hell? I'll just go make my own money.
Yeah.
How much of that has to do with receptivity and your willingness in that moment to say, this is something that I need to change? Had you maybe gone through that 2, 3, 4 years earlier, maybe the results are different. Right. So for you, how much of that was played into it of, no, this is something that needs to change for me?
Oh, man, it was everything. That it starts with that. If you're out there and you're struggling, or if you know of someone that's struggling, the only way to get through it is if you look yourself in the mirror. If that person looks himself in the mirror and says, I want this. That's it. You can't be Actually, when I was there for 3 months. The first month and a half, to the T, I was resistant. I was pushing. It was everybody else's fault. And then it wasn't until he hates when I tell this story, but there was the first time he talked to me like this. My therapist talked to me as if as if he was my coach. And he was like, why is it everybody else's fault? It's everybody else's fault. Like, man, I'm thinking, you supposed to listen to me. I'm laying on the couch.
I'm on the couch.
Yeah, right. I got my feet up. Like, that's what they do in the movies. Like,
where did you go to school?
And he was like, control what you can control. Everybody else's fault. And then it clicked for me, right? And I don't know if it was because that's what I was used to and I was trained that way. Someone, on me and intense and just no beating around the bush. But that's when it clicked. And then in the second half is when I just start taking off, man. I would start reading more. I start leaning into all the material. And you have to be receptive to it. That's the only way. That's why you see a lot of these guys, you can sit down with them right away and be like, oh, they're not ready. Right. Because like you can hear it, the language. You got to be ready.
And that's my favorite thing about you and listening to all your shows and your interviews is how insightful you are and how what's internal. You internalize things. You know yourself really, really well. And I'm guessing that's been a long, slow process over time. Were you always like that? Were you always an insightful person? And you just didn't know how to manifest it? Yeah. Or is that something you've had to work at over the years?
I think it was probably the first part, like not being able to manifest it. Because as an athlete, we're always inside of our own heads and feeling like where are we at today, and it's like, how do you channel that? I didn't know how to do that. And I was a product of my environment. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My town, East Liberty, is the poorest town in all of Pennsylvania. It's a couple miles out from, back in the day, Three River Stadium. Three River Stadium is Heinz now, right? Yeah. But that's the north side downtown. But over there, like, I got people that's never been to downtown Pittsburgh, and it's only a couple miles away. And so when you think about that neighborhood, man, it run down. My father was a drug dealer. There's a lot of crime. So like I grew up with that mentality. In our neighborhoods, we're raised and taught and molded to survive, not thrive. Right. And part of the survival modes is like that's a call for help. Yeah. That's like screaming. Like, no, what's wrong? Yeah. Talk about your emotions. Like, you hurt my feelings. We're not gonna say that in the hood. Yeah. If I say that in the hood, man, I could get beat up. So you hurt my feelings. Oh, we hurt Brandon.
You back down.
Well,
here we go. Yeah.
Right.
Well, not only can you say that in your neighborhood, you can't say that on the field either, in the locker room. So everywhere you go, there's no outlet for this.
People thought I was so weird when I got back. Like even Jay Cut. Like, I was with Jay Cutler the first 4 years in Denver. And he saw the young B, the immature B, the problem B. And then when we regrouped in Chicago, Jay was just sitting back. I was in Bible study. I was like, hey guys, I want to come to Bible study. No, don't talk like that. Here's difficult conversations. And they was like, man, this ain't real. You know what I mean? It's like, this ain't real. I don't know what this Brandon Marshall
That's
is.
opposite of Jay, right? Like Jay is just like this, right? Like I ain't showing anything.
Right.
But what I love though, man, is the courage. And maybe it took those 3 months going through just intense focus on yourself. But man, the courage to step out, because in sports, all of sports, right? People may have talked about it, like the Ricky Williams documentary. It was like kind of like, okay, we'll sprinkle a little bit of it here, a little bit there. But someone to really just come out and just be a champion for it, no one had done that.
Yeah.
No one had normalized the conversation around mental health. And then really when you were in Chicago and started the foundation, man, and getting it out there and using the platform to say, hey, look, we have to talk about this. Yes, you may think we're gladiators on the field, man, but we're little kids at home and in our mind. Like, we've got a lot of maturing to do because, like Ben said, on the field, you have to be a gladiator to the dude next to you. Like, you've got to show when you can be a team and you can be transparent, you can be authentic and say, hey, man, I'm struggling with this. Then that's when, dude, think about
that's
tight
when
knit.
That's when it happens.
The team becomes that.
Right.
Or you do a ton of drugs and stuff like that.
Talking
Like
about
they did
the
in the
Cowboy
90s.
House?
Yeah,
The Cowboy
Hey,
Oh, good. White House.
one of the two. There's two options.
But you listen,
But they were together.
But they were doing it together.
we did it all together, man. But hey, listen, I was at ESPN at the time when you were going through this transition. So and I didn't know you personally, Brandon. So you were disruptive to the sports world altogether.
Right.
Because what we knew at ESPN and everyone that was broadcasting and the games and all was, this dude's a superstar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how superstars are, they act a certain way.
Right.
So when you went through this transition of this guy that was volatile, and then he came back, and I said the same thing. When you went to Chicago, I was like, who is this? I'm on this set going, I don't know him.
Right.
I don't know who this dude is because he's in front of the camera. He's talking a little different. He's slick.
Right.
Pittsburgh kid. He's slick. He's got an agenda. But
Right.
things change, and you brought it to light, man.
Right.
And I'm so proud to be sitting here next to you, man, because you were vulnerable at that time. You didn't care what the media was saying, whether it be ESPN, CBS, all the big networks. You brought it to light, and I think that was the first time I really saw it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to see more players come out, man. So we appreciate you so much just for being vulnerable at that time.
No, I appreciate it, and that's where it starts. It starts with vulnerability, and it was scary. I had no clue what I was taking on.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone advised against it. My publicist at the time, my agent didn't really. He's like, man, I believe in you.
Yeah.
But you can see it in his eyes, like, this is tough sledding here. I just went out there because it was my experience, man, being there. Like, there was literally days where I went and smiled, I went and talked. That's the stuff that we didn't see, the isolation, the depression, right? And sitting there, not being able to tell my loved ones I love them, like literally, right? There was nothing there. And so being there for 3 months, and then all of a sudden I'm at, like, baseball. Like, that was big for me, go to a baseball game and enjoy it. Like, it was just train, go home.
Yep.
One of my buddies came, Max Crosby, the legend. One of my buddies came to my house. I just bought this $4.1 million home in Florida, right? This is when I got my first big deal. Bill Parcells was like, don't buy that house, Rosie. Don't buy that house. I bought it anyway. It's like, oh, you're going to learn. You're going to learn.
me.
Right. 10 years later, I was like, yeah, you probably was right. I didn't need it. But so I'm sitting in this house, man. I had a theater. I had a full court basketball court in the back, this beautiful pool, everything. And my buddy came down to train with me, and he's like, bro, I've been down here 3 weeks, and you haven't left the house, to do anything other than train. I was like, why would I leave this house? I didn't even know anything was wrong with me. He was like, bro, like, you literally just come home, this theater room, I don't want to leave this theater room, right? So I didn't even know anything was wrong with me. So I think, like, those moments, being able to go from that to within 3 months, going to a baseball game, having a hot dog and a beer. Like, that was big. I'm like, yo, I don't even like beer, but I'm going to have a beer because I'm out.
At a baseball game.
I went to a hockey. This was when I was in Boston. Like, so I was there. I went to the Sox game. I went to the Bruins game. That's when they won the
Stanley Cup.
The Stanley Cup, right? And so I went to a hockey game. I enjoyed that. It was things I would never do. Like, I was afraid to be around people, It was awkward, but I get it now.
Yeah. Something else that was going on during this time, 2011, 2012, was the introduction of social media. Instagram starts coming online. Facebook's
Twitter,
a big deal.
Twitter was
Twitter
big.
starting to come. And now your life is such a big part, social media is such a big part of your life.
Yep.
It's hard to imagine, not being online. But how did social media, especially in those early years, how did that play into your recovery and you starting to change your life around? Were you able to dabble at all into that? Did you have to stay completely away? Because that's
I was a late adopter to all of that stuff. So actually, Facebook came out when we were in college, and I was big, and we got in the league, and it was the first time I was like, someone said like, man, they watch that stuff, and then my buddy, of course I was young, I was going out, and my buddies, I would be drinking, but I would know back then, like, I'm not going to take a picture and have a.
You don't think that goes to it.
I know I was thinking through that back then, but then there was like this one moment where I was with my cousin and my brother, and they posted a picture, and it was, on my page, it somehow came up on my page, or I don't know how it was shared or whatever, and I just got off of Facebook. I was like, I don't want the teams to see that, right? And then fast forward to Twitter and Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, all of that. Like, I was late adopters to that. So I'm only on Instagram and barely on Twitter. But I think I'm glad that I didn't have to deal with that in the prime of my career.
Yeah.
Like, I was just out there just posting whatever, a game, an action shot or something like that. But now that's a huge thing that these athletes have to navigate through.
Yeah. You've got to navigate how to handle that the right way, because there's an engagement that's great, right? That can build your brand, like you talked about. But then there's also engagement and there's trolls out there, man, and all they're trying to do is trap you.
That's right.
And so just being able to navigate that and like you say, keep your composure. All right, I want to move towards taking that. Now that we've heard your story, a little background on how important it was to you just to be healthy as a human, right? Altogether. Now you have a great career. Now you're transitioning out and you're figuring out, hey, what's next for me? What am I going to do? Is it just going to be the foundation? Am I going to build a business? Like you said, I'm going to go make the money so that I can help people. Right. So you created while playing. You had a gym, right, down in Miami, but then you had this vision to create something. Talk us through what House of Athlete is, because I think that's where Sleep Number and House of Athlete, right? You have very similar goals in the idea of recovery. That Sleep Number is pouring tons of resources into creating new science and new data. But talk us through House of Athlete, what you're doing there, and what the vision behind it is.
Well, first I want to say this to people listening is like, sleep is critical for performance. And when we think about performance, we think about athletes, we think about entertainers, right? We think about theater, but performance, I'm talking about, how do you perform as a husband? How do you perform as a father, an entrepreneur, a wife, an at-home dad, at-home mom, a weekend warrior? Like, we all perform every single day, and we need to take sleep serious, right? There's so many people dumping a lot of resources and a lot of time trying to learn this. Like, do you understand what REM sleep is? Right? Do you understand why that is important? Like, when you sleep, there's so much happening. That's where you recharge, where you reset, where your body's recovering physically, but also your brain. That when you sleep and you hit REM sleep, now all the stuff that you need is processing through that and putting it where it needs to be stored, and the stuff that you don't, like the crap that we carry every single day. That stuff is just being put in the waste machine. And so that's why sleep is important. That's why a lot of us, if you feel you got sleep apnea, loss of energy, if you feel foggy, all you got to do is look, man, I probably got 3-4 hours of sleep last night. A lot of people think because we're in this grind time, like, it's grind. Yeah. No, sleep is for losers.
Exactly.
What?
That's always been the mindset.
Right, yeah,
man.
like, what?
You don't sleep, man. You're supposed to just go all day long. It doesn't work that way.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Like, I ain't sleep. I sleep when I die. What? Yeah. Well, you're going to die faster if you don't start sleeping more than 4 hours. The average American is sleeping like 4 hours. Yeah. And the crazy part is we think it's cool. Yep. So, sleep is huge. Also a big thing, and we've been talking about it already, is your mindset, is your mental health. I call it mental fitness. There's things that we can do and be proactive to perform better. We don't have to wait until we're dealing with a lot of stress or anxiety or depression. Like, there's things that we can do right now to take our performance to a whole nother level. So for me, the reason why I'm big on sleep is because of and then it's like how House of Athlete and everything came together. But House of Athlete, again, everything goes to mental health. Like on Wednesdays, just how we train. How do we train in the off season? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday we recover. A lot of us jumped in the pool on Wednesday, and then we go Thursday, Friday, and sometimes we do something on Saturday. That's how we train in the NFL, right? That was the blueprint that was given to us. Like you guys probably trained
same
that way.
The exact same way. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you take a day off and get in a cold pool and recover. So.
There you go. So on Wednesdays at our facility, so our pro athletes, they jump in the pool, but we also have mental health practitioners on site. We do group there. Those groups that I talked about, mentalization, self-assessment, cognitive behavior therapy. I do that on site at House of Athlete. Wow. Every Wednesday you come and you see these groups. Why? Because it's whether you're dealing with impairment or not, it's so powerful being able to be connected to a group and just talk about like through self-assessment, right?
Yeah. Hey,
this is what's going on in my life today. Right, that's so powerful. So talk therapy is critical. Then also sleep. So for the rest of my life, that's like what I'm gonna be preaching. Like that's my message. All right. Like there's a lot of work I'm doing right now, like to get my team in the right shape. But like when you hear me talk, I don't care wherever panel I'm sitting on, you're gonna hear me talk about sleep. You're gonna hear me talk about mental fitness. It's critical. It's the secret weapon if you want to perform better. Some people just don't care.
Right. Yeah.
That's okay. Right. That's okay. It's not okay. But listen, I'm not gonna waste my time trying to convince you that you need to take care of yourself, right? Because there's 100 million people over here that is actually curious and want to learn. I'll spend my time over here teaching, right, and having conversations about why this stuff matters, right? So that's where I want to put my energy.
You know what I love is we've interviewed over 100 people on this podcast. We're still fairly young and successful people in all walks of life. They've done everything. And it always comes back, and I say this every time, it always comes back to the service of others. And everything you've dedicated your life to these last however many years is serving other people, teaching other people, bettering other. That's entrepreneurship. You're finding problems, you're solving those problems for people.
Right.
You're not looking at yourself and thinking, how can I make all this money? You're thinking, how can I serve other people?
Right.
And I love that because, again, that's just another data point of why service is so important.
So important. Shaq tweeted something this morning driving in. Tyler picked me up this morning, and I was on, looking at Twitter. I wasn't listening to him.
Did he wear a black hat?
Tyler was like if you're with Tyler, he's always on these business calls. He's talking about entrepreneurship and business. Like, he has so many dang on conference calls.
Every time he gets in the car, I just give him the finger, like, shut up. Get in the car, get in the back, just shut up. I'm doing real things.
This is what real entrepreneurship looks like.
This is what grown men are doing there.
This Uber driver looks like.
You're right. Mr. Businessman. So anyways, I'm on Twitter, and then Shaq just tweeted that today. It's not a big deal, but he's like, you do good, you get good.
Yes.
Right. That's why you see Shaq, man. He's amazing. He's being blessed 10 times. But you'll see him. He'll just be in Walmart and just go bless somebody.
Yeah.
Right. And it's literally from his heart. And now that's his brand now.
Yeah.
Like think about that. His brand is built off of being a good person. He's a good person. There's some people that are manipulative. And they try to do it just for that reason. But like guys like that, man, they're blessed 10 times. And you want things to show up in your life, then you need to do that in other people's lives.
And that's it, man. And we talked earlier about the hard times, and you're going through. It's man, and maybe I'm just not that's why I'm not the best fullback that's ever played in the NFL. But like for me, it's the motivation, right? It was I gotta do this work now for the guy next to me. I got to do this for him. And even in business, when you have motivation to serve other people, that purpose is sustainable. If you're just chasing a check, you're like, I'll take it. Like if I'm doing something for my kids, for my wife, for the community, it's like I can't not do this. That's the sustainable motivation, and that's where the purpose comes into it.
Sorry, you just said it though. We're all looking for purpose. Everybody's like, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I'm.
Because you're looking the wrong way.
Service.
Your purpose is it's an inward purpose, right? Absolutely. It's like, hey, how can I serve myself?
That's where it starts.
That's right. That's not what we're looking for.
Yeah, it's understanding your weaknesses and how you can improve your weaknesses. Because if you don't take care of self, if you took on a victim mentality, there's no way you'd be sitting here to this day, right? So you serve self, and then outwardly it just pours out.
That's a huge point because that's what you had to do first. You had to take care of yourself. You can't pour into other people until you take care of yourself.
That's right. First. And that's big. Don't. That's so big. Say that again.
You can't take care of other people until you take care of yourself.
That's big,
that's what you had to do.
That's big. And there's some amazing people out there. You just need to take the time, and whether it's 3 months like myself at McLean Hospital or if it's just going out on a long weekend and just taking a deep breath and just regrouping. But you got to take care of yourself first before you can start pouring into others. That's so big.
Well,
Man,
I love it.
There's so many people, man, that I know that are young people that tune into the show all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, all the time. My son, God bless him. Yo, did you see what was on the show today? You guys need to get this guest. You need to have this topic. And, I am athlete, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, it's refreshing to see you guys take on hot topics.
Yes.
Right.
It's refreshing to see you run through the door. Like, you're not going to back down. You're going to go forward, man. And there's a lot of young kids, specifically kids of our color, who are sitting here watching.
Wow.
And as they watch, and they watch you knock down these doors, man, it's just impressive, man, because we have to do our job.
Right. Right.
And our job is to serve and to give back. But just through your work and them actually seeing you do the work,
Right.
that's the blessing right there, man.
Yeah.
It's
That's
a
so
huge
good.
blessing, bro.
Man, I love it. And that's what we need.
Yes.
Men in this country, right?
Men.
To look at themselves. All right, get yourself healthy, but
Right.
be the example.
That's
Don't
right.
don't go out there yelling, hollering. Go be the example. Go do it. Go execute. It. Show the younger generation, because we have a massive lack of leadership in this country. We
Yeah.
talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Go be the leader by example.
Yeah.
Go
That's right.
serve somebody else.
Brandon,
And-
everybody listening has just fell in love with you, just like I just did.
Oh,
We're
that's
having
awesome.
a moment. We're having a moment right now.
All right,
You may
now
not feel it.
Hey, do we
but I'm having a
transition?
moment.
Do we
All right, let's
transition
go.
over to the spoon session over here? Is that where we're going?
I'll go this way.
Let's go on a
Yeah,
date
we got to let him
tonight.
go. We got to let him go.
Well, yeah,
guys.
and that's what I wanted to do. Everybody listening is like, how do I get more Brandon?
Yeah.
How can people find you? Where can
Right.
people find
Oh wow, thank you. YouTube, so all of our episodes and shows are on YouTube every Monday at noon. Also on all audio platforms. Sirius XM, Stitcher is our partner, but we're on all audio platforms. Really appreciate that. I also want to circle back to one thing we talked about, purpose. A lot of times, right, because there's people out there, they're in their youth right now, in their 20s, even in their 50s, right? And they're still trying to find their purpose. A lot of times you can find your purpose in your pain, right? Where's the most toil in your life? God could be calling you over there, right? So searching your pain, if you're trying to find your purpose, it's a good place to start. It's not for everyone, but it's a good place to start.
Man, I love that. I love that. So the other thing, House of Athlete in South Florida right now, Tampa, gonna be in Dallas soon. But this is a home for everybody,
That's
right?
right.
This is somewhere that everyone can come, whether you're a professional athlete or you're
Me.
your everyday mom,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It doesn't
yeah,
matter. Come because what Brandon is doing is just building the whole person with
Yeah,
this.
that's
So man, I'm excited for that rollout as well. But man, yeah, I am athlete and all the different I can say spinoffs off of that, man, that you're doing, man. So fun to watch you. So fun to watch the impact that you're making, man, and on the kingdom, but on this world, man. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate your courage, your bravery to go through it, man. And thanks for coming on today.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. This was awesome. It's over?
No, we're spooning. We got to
Oh, we're
time
spooning.
over
Okay, let's
here.
go.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I thought it was
You want to be the
over.
fourth host of the One Shot Podcast from now on?
All
Yeah,
right.
let's do it.